They tell you intelligence is your greatest advantage. That's the lie smart people pay to hear. Robert Greene spent 30 years studying power. The pattern he kept finding wasn't that smart people win. It was that smart people lose, specifically because they're smart. Their intelligence becomes the handle others grab to steer them. The tool used to steer them is the one thing they never see coming. Not deception, not force, stupidity. Perform deliberate weaponized stupidity. Princeton University, 2003. Psychologist Alexander Todorov designed a study that would quietly reshape political science. He showed participants photographs of unfamiliar political candidates. Exposure time, 1 second, 1 single second. Then he asked a simple question: who looks more competent? Those snap judgments predicted the actual winners of US congressional elections with 70% accuracy, from a face no one had ever seen, in a time window shorter than a blink. Todorov wasn't measuring intelligence. He was proving something far more dangerous: that competence is a performance. The people who win aren't necessarily the ones who are competent. They're the ones who control how competence is perceived. And the people who lose are the ones who assumed their competence would speak for itself. Robert Greene understood this before Todorov published a single paper. Across centuries of courts, boardrooms, and battlefields, the same pattern repeated. The winners weren't the smartest in the room. They were the ones smart enough to appear less threatening than they were. That's the principle this video is built on. It operates through 6 laws that Greene either named directly or demonstrated through the figures he studied. 6 laws that explain how stupidity, real or performed, becomes the most disarming weapon in any power dynamic. By the time we reach number 6, you'll understand why the most dangerous person in any room is never the one who looks dangerous. Number 1, the law of false inferiority. In the 48 Laws of Power, Greene writes, Law 21, play a sucker to catch a sucker. The instruction is deceptively plain. Make people feel smarter than you. They will never suspect you of having a design on them. This isn't about being dumb. It's about making your intelligence invisible. Greene traced this principle to Charles Maurice de Talleyrand, the French diplomat who survived the Revolution, Napoleon's Empire, and the Bourbon Restoration. 3 regimes, each one executed the allies of the last. Talleyrand outlived them all. His method never changed. He asked naive questions in rooms full of people who thought they were smarter than him. He played confused at moments when confusion bought him time. He let powerful men explain their strategies to him, slowly, carefully, as if teaching a student. They were handing him their playbook and feeling generous while doing it. You've seen a smaller version of this in every meeting you've ever attended. The person who asks the dumb question. Everyone smirks. And then the entire conversation pivots around that question. 10 minutes later, the agenda has shifted. And the person who asked it is the only one who got what they came for. That question wasn't dumb. It was a door disguised as a stumble. The first law Greene teaches, without ever naming it this cleanly, is that visible intelligence is a liability. The moment people see your mind working, they start defending against it. But no one defends against someone they've already dismissed. And what happens when an entire system is built on dismissing the wrong person? That's where the next law begins. Number 2, the Competence Trap, December 1941. Admiral Husband Kimmel commanded the United States Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor. By every institutional measure, Kimmel was the right man. Decorated, analytical, methodical. He'd spent months studying Japanese naval capabilities. He understood tonnage, range, aircraft carrier doctrine. He was one of the most competent admirals in the U.S. Navy. On the morning of December 7th, a private at the Opana Point radar station detected a large formation of incoming aircraft. He reported it. The information officer on duty dismissed it. assumed it was a flight of American B-17s expected that morning. The logic was sound, the assumption was reasonable, and it was catastrophically wrong. Kimmel's failure wasn't ignorance, it was the opposite. He and his staff had built such a detailed mental model of what a Japanese attack would look like. A submarine-led assault, a blockade, a gradual escalation, that the actual attack, which matched none of their models, slipped through. Their competence had become a filter, and the filter blocked the one signal that mattered. In 1999, psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger published their landmark study at Cornell. The finding everyone quotes is that incompetent people overestimate their abilities, but the finding that matters more, the one people skip, is the other half. Highly competent people systematically underestimate how much they know relative to others. They assume everyone sees what they see. They assume the facts speak for themselves. Greene identified this as the core vulnerability of intelligent people. In the 33 Strategies of War, he described the trap of thinking strategically while your opponent thinks theatrically. You're solving the problem. They're controlling the narrative, and the narrative wins every single time. Think about the last argument you lost, not because you were wrong, because you were so obviously right that you didn't bother to perform being right. You had the evidence, they had the emotion, and the room remembered the emotion. That's the competence trap. Intelligence locks your focus on substance, power operates on surface, and the moment you refuse to play on the surface, you've handed the game to whoever will. But there's something worse than refusing to play on the surface. It's when someone constructs a surface specifically designed for your intelligence to land on. That's law number 3. Number 3, the decoy of transparency. Greene's Law 3 in the 48 Laws of Power. Conceal your intentions. But he goes further than secrecy. The most effective concealment isn't silence, it's noise. You don't hide your real move by saying nothing. You hide it by giving people a false move to focus on. April 1943, British intelligence launched Operation Mincemeat. The plan was so absurd that even its architects thought it might be rejected. They took the body of a recently deceased man, dressed him as a Royal Marines officer named Major William Martin, and placed fabricated invasion plans in his briefcase. Then they dropped him off the coast of Spain, knowing German agents monitored that coastline. The documents pointed to Greece and Sardinia as the Allied invasion targets. The real target was Sicily. Here's what makes this relevant to Greene's principle. A crude fake would have failed. German intelligence was staffed with rigorous, experienced analysts. They would have spotted obvious fabrication in minutes. So the British didn't make the documents simple. They made them complex. They included personal letters, a photograph of a fictional fiancé, a receipt for an engagement ring, details so intimate and so irrelevant to military strategy that no forger would bother inventing them. The analysts took weeks to verify the documents. They cross-referenced, they debated, they were brilliant, and they were completely deceived, not despite their intelligence, but through it. The operation succeeded precisely because it respected the analytical rigor of the people it was designed to fool. You see this pattern in every act of sophisticated deception. The co-worker who shares a real vulnerability, something small, something true, so that you trust the next thing they say, which isn't true at all. The negotiator who concedes an early point to make you feel you're winning, so you stop guarding the point they actually came for. Transparency becomes the weapon, not honesty, the performance of honesty. Intelligent people are the ideal targets for this, because they believe their ability to analyze protects them. It doesn't. It makes them a better audience. And once you've become the audience, there's one tool that strips away whatever control you think you still have. Silence. Number 4. The Economy of Silence. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Book 5. The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. What's rarely examined is his method. It wasn't argument, it wasn't persuasion, it was silence. Strategic, intentional, unnerving silence. Greene explored this through Law 4. Always say less than necessary. But the mechanism runs deeper than the law suggests. Silence doesn't just conceal information. It forces the other person to project meaning into the gap you've created. And their projection always reveals more than your words ever could. In 2014, researchers at the University of Groningen measured the psychological effect of silence in conversation. They found that pauses of just 4 seconds created measurable anxiety in participants. 4 seconds. People rushed to fill the gap. They over-explained. They offered concessions they hadn't planned to offer. The silence itself became a form of pressure, invisible, deniable, and devastatingly effective. Calvin Coolidge built an entire presidency on this. During a White House dinner, a guest told Coolidge she'd made a bet that she could get him to say more than 2 words. Coolidge looked at her and said, "You lose." The story became legend, but the strategy was real. Coolidge's political opponents routinely overextended themselves, trying to provoke a response from a man who simply refused to give one. They attacked. He waited. They escalated. He waited longer. And the public, watching the exchange, consistently sided with the man who seemed unbothered. Smart people are catastrophically bad at this. They feel a compulsion to respond to every argument, to correct every error, to demonstrate they've understood. That compulsion is a leash, and anyone who recognizes it can lead them anywhere. But silence only controls the space between words. The next law controls something far harder to defend: what you feel. And once someone controls that, the game changes entirely. Number 5, the weaponization of emotional noise. Seneca, in De Ira, on anger, made a distinction most people still haven't absorbed. Anger, he wrote, is the one emotion that believes itself to be reason. It doesn't announce itself as irrational. It arrives wearing the mask of clarity. Greene documented this pattern across centuries. Provocation among the powerful is never accidental. The advisor who insults a rival in front of a king isn't losing his temper. He's engineering the rival's loss of composure. Because the moment you react emotionally in a room full of observers, you stop being the rational one. And in any power dynamic, the room follows whoever appears most rational, whether they are or not. A 2012 study at the University of Amsterdam, led by Gerben van Cleef, tested this directly. Negotiators who expressed anger gained larger concessions from their counterparts, but only under one condition. The other party had to believe the anger was strategic. When the anger looked uncontrolled, when it seemed genuine, it backfired completely. The variable wasn't the emotion. It was the audience's read on whether the emotion was a signal or a symptom. This is the trap Greene keeps circling. Emotional noise, anger, flattery, confusion, sudden enthusiasm is never neutral in a power exchange. It's always a move, and the person generating the noise is rarely the one drowning in it. If someone is making you feel something intensely during a conversation, a negotiation, a confrontation, the first question isn't why you feel it. The first question is, who benefits from you feeling this right now? Sit with that question, because the final law takes it further, into a place most intelligent people never think to look. The moment after the game appears to be over. Number 6. The illusion of the finished game. This might be the most dangerous pattern Greene ever documented. He never gave it a single name, but it runs through the 48 laws of power, the 33 strategies of war, and the laws of human nature, like a load-bearing wall. Remove it, and the entire framework collapses. Smart people believe in resolution. They think arguments end. They think deals close. They think that once a conflict is settled, the map is final. Greene's entire body of work argues the opposite. Power is never settled. It is only paused. Vienna, 1815. Napoleon had been defeated. France was broken, occupied, humiliated. Every nation in Europe wanted to carve it apart, and the man sent to negotiate on France's behalf was Talleyrand, the same diplomat from Law 1. No army behind him, no treasury, no moral authority. A representative of a country the rest of the continent wanted to punish. Within months, Talleyrand had maneuvered France from defeated enemy to equal partner at the negotiating table. He didn't do it with arguments. He did it by exploiting a single blind spot shared by every other diplomat in the room. They believed the game was over. France had lost. The only question was how to divide the spoils. Talleyrand saw what they couldn't. The alliance that had defeated Napoleon was held together by a common enemy. With Napoleon gone, the alliance had no center. Britain distrusted Russia. Austria feared Prussia. Everyone suspected everyone. Talleyrand fed those suspicions, quietly, deniably, one conversation at a time. Within weeks, the coalition that had conquered Europe was fracturing from within. And France, the defeated nation, was being courted by all sides. He won because they stopped playing, and he never did. You see this everywhere, once you know to look. The colleague who lost the promotion, but spends the next 6 months building relationships your boss depends on. The competitor who concedes the deal, but takes the client relationship. The person who apologizes, not because they mean it, but because the apology itself becomes the opening move in a longer sequence you haven't even realized has started. Intelligent people are addicted to closure. They want the answer. They want the conclusion. They want the final score. That addiction makes them stop paying attention at the exact moment attention matters most. Todorov's study at Princeton proved that people judge competence in 1 second. 1 second to decide who belongs in power. But Greene's work asks the question Todorov's study can't answer. What happens after that second? What happens when the person who looked less competent turns out to be the one who engineered the outcome from the beginning? No one notices. Because by the time the outcome is visible, the story has already been written. And the story always favors the one who appeared to be in control, not the one who actually was. That's the architecture of weaponized stupidity. Not ignorance, not incompetence. The strategic refusal to perform intelligence when performance would cost more than silence. Greene didn't invent this, he documented it. Across emperors and con artists, diplomats and generals, the same pattern repeats. The most dangerous form of power is the kind that never looks like power at all. And now you know what to look for. The question is whether you'll see it in time, or whether you'll be the one someone else sees it in. Subscribe if this changed how you see intelligence.